Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing well. I'm back to get started on the rest of our creation bedtime story saga, hypothesis, them type of things. So, the last part we left off, we had Uno number one monolith, and then um um let me see, cinco. Wait, uno, dos, yeah, dos, the os, and then the little ball that the number one guy threw off into left field and came back, and it stuck to the second monolith, kind of down towards the bottom. Came back from an angle, so it went like past the other one way out there, and then just came back at an angle and stuck down at the base. Okay, well, this was kind of noisy. We could call it, like, ever been around a little girl and she's like, well, some little boys are like that too, but typically you'll get this little girl and she's just like chatty, chatty, chatty. And um okay, well, anyway, so uh this little ball is stuck down there. Well, God still got a headache. And when that ball came back, it created a friction on the second monolith, and God had created life. That was the Son of God, a pure spitting in image with all the capabilities, steadfast within this monolith, creating within himself, um, alongside God. Um, so you got this little, we'll just call it Steely, Chatty Cathy Steely, whatever. So, got this little yammer, and now we'll just call him Christ. Christ is thinking, okay, what am I going to do with this? All the while, God's creating. Christ is simultaneously there together creating. And the angels were created in heaven, and little Jabberbox had the ability of music and dance and mobility that some of these others didn't have. Those were gifts, female gifts, in that little curved thing, that little round ball that God gave just to that little round ball. And parts of himself he wasn't aware of. They were so deep. He's just like, whoa. You remember I said he picked her off his head. We'll just call this female for the time being. Well, the headache's still with God, and Christ is very well aware of it. And so is the little Steely, but she's like, doesn't know what she can do about it, but she is mobile. So she starts climbing up the second monolith, climbs up, and it takes forever. She calls in the angels and they help push her up to the top. Well, they're wore out. They just like took off on another part of the base situation of heaven there, and they were resting for a while. And so Steely, she's up on top of the second monolith, and Christ is like, oh, no, you don't. You're jabbering, you're noisy, man. You need to go, get out of my head. And she's like, fine. So she flips down the other side closer to the Father and starts making her way over there. When she got there, because of the polarity between the two, it was an instant jolt and it tipped him over. And he's now like shaped, and she's in the middle, and it looks like an A. So she's bracing the two of them together and hearing both their thoughts. Well, she's still got movement, and God's like really upset because kind of because she's back because he's got things. Well, he wants to rest. Basically, he really wants to rest. He's so far ahead. He wanted somebody to catch up. Well, Christ is right there, knowing everything. God knows all the way. Anyway, the only youngness now is this little chatterbox stuck in between the two of them. And God's like, okay, I'm resting up against the sun right now. You can just head out, you know. So she's like, well, how do I get out of here, you know? He's going, go back the way you came. Well, she couldn't. So she goes like halfway down the A and out in heaven, and she made her way out. So she's teaching the angels how to sing, and um she baked cookies for them, and she'd bring cookies for them, and she started making like sandwiches for Christ and God, and making sure that they didn't get wore out and they were resting. And the angels were still pretty wore out from all the um I would say the work that Steely had them doing. We'll just call her Steely. Excuse me one moment. Well, things were looking up a little bit better in heaven now that everybody could see that the Father was resting and the Son was helping and Steely was creating things. She created a flower, something that her father hadn't thought of. He had oh he had bushes and trees and grass and all types of creations, and there was, of course, water and air and buildings that the angels made, and creations of every artistic expression that you could consider holy, music and dance and even gardening and all the above. And God allowed certain angels to create, and they did in heaven. The angels multiplied. Well, keep in mind, this is just my story, so whatever text and whatever say, I don't care. This is my story. I'm sticking to it. So, anyway, the Father's resting up, the Son's creating, and helped the Father create all the heavens, and where the Father had a void, Christ would paint color, and everything was going really good, not bad at all. And there still was somewhat in heaven because the Steely was really busy, really, really busy, like crazy, running all over the place. And she just like caused friction, not a mean friction, kind of a good, happy energy. And Christ is like, remember, the Father pulled Steely out of his deepest places of things that he wasn't aware of himself. So Christ is not aware of this, even though they feel steely and they know the feeling because it's a part of themselves like that. The creation that Steely is entirely her own. And from way deep, from the beginning of forever, ever, ever. So now there was a light from where Steely came from. There was a company for God, and Christ was creating. The angels were happy. They had abilities of creation and expression, and things were going pretty good for really. really long time. Except there's only one bad thing. God's still tired. He still creates. He's far ahead, and Christ is right along with the ride. But he's way too tired to take Steely anywhere. I mean, Steely's kind of like really young, super, super young in spirit. That's just what happens. God got tired, and Christ understands this too, but Steely wants to create. And she's like, I gotta do something special. I mean, singing, dancing, talking in the arts, that's cool. And I bake and I created flour and a flower rather, and whatever. But this just isn't cutting it. I gotta do something different. So she's thinking how to help the father not be tired anymore. What can she possibly do to give back the energy that was expended from him creating? Well, he hadn't never expended energy towards another of his self, so and the mutual flow was going good between the father and the son. It's the headache of the whole thing. Steely, unknowingly, I mean, and even a happy part of the father under normal circumstances, but these weren't normal circumstances. A giant monolith made a second giant monolith, and in the process got a headache, which turned into another life force, which was out there creating on her own now without the knowledge of the Father. Thinking, knowing she's not that knowledgeable, but thinking that any creation made with that would be just fine and everything would turn out fine. And it does. And it will. And God planned it from the depths. But Steely doesn't know that. The Father doesn't know that. The Son doesn't know that. And of course, the angels do not know that. Okay, well, now we got a problem because we got some tired angels. Some of them are okay from hauling Steely's butt around, but some of them aren't. And they're a part of the Father, and this is affecting the Father, the Son, and Steely, and all the angels. Well, we'll call this one Then There Was Light. And did Steely make a boo boo? Probably not. God fixes everything and had it all planned, but at this point, the Father, the Son, the Steely, and all the angels are like miffed. They don't know what they're going to do. So we'll leave this cliffhanger of creation till next week, probably. Sounds about good. And I love you all. Peace and love from Pine City, Minnesota. Thank you for joining me, and good night.